Sounds about right. So the next one is actions are specified in the optional blank and blank clauses of the foreign key constraint. So blank and blank are followed by either restrict, set null, set, default, or cascade. Now remember, this right here, restrict, set null, set, default, or cascade, they're writing something in SQL, and there's a reason why it's going to be followed by restrict, set, null. And let's go to the definition. On update and on delete. So actions are specified in the optional on update and on delete clauses of the foreign key constraint. And remember, constraint is stopping things from happening. So the foreign key has rules and regulations. So when you're trying to update, delete, clauses of the foreign key constraint, auto update and auto delete are followed by either restrict, set null. Again, you're going to set these rules to restrict. You're going to set null, meaning, like we talked about, there's going to be, you can't have A's in a numeric column. It's going to go to null, or you're going to set a default, or you're going to cascade, which we just talked about, where the cascade will go from one table to the other table because the foreign key is in a table 2 and primary is in table 1. So if you can kind of think of that, this is showing you how SQL is written. And really, that's the best way to think of it. If you know how SQL is written, you know, and how it starts and ends, I really recommend you doing that and checking that out. So hope that helps. Next one is a blank is a rule that governs allowable values in a database. Blanks are based on relational and business rules and implemented with the special keywords in a create table statement. The table automatically rejects insert, update, and delete statements that violate a constraint. So it's actually a constraint, which is funny. So a constraint is a rule. Again, remember, constraint holds it back. It sets, restricts you. A constraint is a rule that governs allowable values into a database. Constraint, rules and regulations, are based on relational and business rules. So they set this constraint based upon the rules, and they made it happen with special keywords in a create table statement. So you create the table statement. The database automatically rejects, inserts, updates, and deletes statements that violate a constraint. So that's pretty explainable right there. The constraint's going to make sure that you can't do certain things, and when you violate it by trying to insert or update or delete, it's going to reject it. Point blank, period. So next one is a blank appears after the column name and data type in a create table statement. Column constraint gives governed values in a single column. Column constraint, same thing. So a column constraint appears after a column name and data type in a create table statement. So when you're creating a column and that column's getting created, saying create this column, you're going to name the column, and then you're going to have the data type, like if it's an integer, integer, varchar, which is various characters, whatever, doesn't matter. You're going to then put a constraint that governs it. That's it. So column constraint. A blank appears in a separate clause of create table statement. It governs values in one or more columns. Table constraint. Same thing. We're just constraining different things. This now is constraining the whole table. The blank constraint ensures that values in a column or group of columns are unique. So the unique constraint, again, this is a unique constraint. It ensures the values in a column or group of columns are unique. Makes sense to me? The blank constraint specifies an expression on one or more columns of the table. The constraint is violated when the expression is false and satisfied when the expression is either true or null. So the check. So best way to remind this is you're checking something, right? You want to check it. I'm going to check it and make sure it's good. So the check constraint specifies an expression, which means, checks the expression on one or more columns of the table, make sure everything's on the up and up, and the constraint is violated when the expression is false, meaning if it doesn't check out to be what it's supposed to be, then it's no good. And it's satisfied when the expression is either true or null, meaning like, when you set it to be null, that's cool. Well, if you set that, and if it's true, then it's true. We don't need to check something that's going to return and say, hey, we checked it. It's all good. It checked out as true. So just remember that. Check. Table blank may be used, may be named, table blank may be used, table blank may be named using the optional constraint keywords, followed by the constraint name and declaration. So table constraint, again, we're making rules and regulations, and it may be named using the optimal constraint keyword, followed by the constraint name and declaration. That's just telling you when you're writing a SQL entry, how it's going to be written. So it's telling you, hey, when you're writing it, the constraint keyword, which is optional, is going to be followed by the constraint name and the declaration. So you're going to put constraint, you're going to name the constraint, and you're going to make the declaration. You want more information, go Google it. But most of this test is definition, so that should help you out. A blank is a high-level representation of data requirements, ignoring implementation details. An entity relationship model. I don't know why, but the OA really, the test asked me this, and I don't know how they asked me, but they asked me in a wonky way. I feel like I got it right, but who knows, right? So just kind of pay attention to this right here. An entity relationship model, which is the ERM, um, a blank is a high-level representation of data requirements, ignoring implementation details, right? So just remember, if you're going to look at a high level, whenever you see high level representation, data requirements, know that that high level means entity relationship model. And when it's ignoring implementation details, that should really help you kind of make that, relating to this entity relationship model. Should kind of draw that. Just kind of try to make those words pull towards entity relationship model, ERM. So no, when you hear that high level representation, entity relationship model, because then you hear the rest, data requirements, ignoring implementation details. So next one is in blank is a person, place, product, concept, or activity. An entity is a person, place, product, concept, or activity. Entities are usually singular and not plural as well. So it doesn't say persons, places, products. So usually we'll, like, for example, people would say one person for the employee name, not Tom and Sue or whatever. No offense to any Toms or Sues out there. I'm just throwing name, most generic names possible to help get through this. So a blank is a statement about two entities. Relationship. Perfect. So anytime you're referring to two entities and you're making a statement, it's the statement that brings them together is the relationship. A blank is a descriptive property of an entity, attribute. So anytime attribute is a description of an entity. So, car, and then it might be blue, things like that. So that's a pretty simple one. Just kind of remember the attribute is describing the person, might be, again, Jane has, blue eyes, and that might be her attribute. Blue eyes, good smile, whatever hair, I don't know. But there you go, attribute. A blank relates an entity to itself. Reflexive relationship. So a reflexive relationship relates an entity to itself. So I'll just say, hey, this reflexive relationship means it reflexes back to itself. Reflective, maybe like a mirror. So a reflexive relationship relates to an entity itself. There you go. A blank, commonly called an ER diagram, is a schematic picture of entities, relationships, and attributes. So an entity relationship diagram, or an ER diagram, commonly called an ER diagram, is a schematic picture of entities, relationships, and attributes. I'm sorry, I follow this. I didn't make this flashcard. I think it's a good one. It's been mentioned a lot for this class, and I didn't write it. I study it. So I know there's a couple of things like that that's kind of wonky, but you know, it's good enough to roll with, so we're doing it. A blank, so again, a blank, an entity relationship diagram, ER diagram, commonly called an ER diagram. So an entity relationship diagram is a schematic picture of entities, relationships, and attributes. Cool. A blank, also known as a blank or a blank, documents additional details in text format. So a glossary, also known as a data dictionary or repository, documents additional detail in text format. Okay, so cool. So additional details in text format is going to be glossary, data dictionary, or repository. Cool. A blank is a set of things, all employees in a company. Entity type, again, back to entity. This is a set of things. So now you're getting plural. So that's an entity type. There we go. A blank is a set of related things. Employee manages department is a set of employee department pairs where the employee manages the department. So that's relationship type. There we go. A blank is a set of values, all employee salaries. So attribute type. Okay, so all employee salaries is attribute type. A blank is an individual thing, the employee Sam Snead. An entity instance is an individual thing. Okay. A blank is a statement about entity instances. Example is Maria Rodriguez manages sales. Relationship instance. So there you go. A blank is an individual value, the salary 35,000, an attribute instance. And I'm hoping on the test they're not going to put attribute and attribute instance. I can't really say exactly what's on the test because then they'll take this whole thing down. Whatever, I can tell you I definitely seen a subject on there. I don't think that's going to be wrong. I mean, potentially all the subjects can be on it. And from what I'm gathering, there is a pool, the test mixes. I definitely didn't get the same test the second time. I took the test completely different, actually. Actually thought I passed the test, almost did. So, yeah. So, again, a blank attribute instance is an individual value. The salary is 35,000. Blank develops an entity relationship model capturing data requirements while ignoring implementation details. Analysis. Analysis develops an entity relationship model capturing data requirements while ignoring implementation details. So if you remember this, and I know it when I took the test, there's an analysis, logical design and physical design. So big key things to remember right here. It develops that entity relationship model. So if you hear about that and they're saying if it's analysis or logical, that's the analysis portion, which they may ask the question like that. Capturing data requirements while ignoring implementation details. Logical is where it starts implementing, and physical. And we'll get to those and I'll explain their differences. But just know, that's where you don't have to have any particular database model yet, especially in analysis. And I think that these flashcards go over that as well. And we will see. Okay. All right. Next.